Today I'm going to tell you a half-throttle true story. This is the story about how I got this KLR 650. It was kind of a nightmare, and I'll try to keep the profanity to a minimum. My whole plan was when I moved to Panama, I would make the most of my YouTube channel, buy a motorcycle, and start making videos, as many videos as I could. So when I got here, I started searching for a KLR 650. And it took me 3 months. I was on Craigslist, I was on this website called Encuentra 24, every day looking for a bike that I could afford, and that was pretty much just I wanted a KLR 650 for down here. And I finally found one. Someone saw a post that I had made on Horizons Unlimited about someone selling a KLR 650. He said, well, I'm in Panama City, and I'm in Costa Rica now, I'll be there soon. So I met up with this guy, and he had this bike, and it was beat down. I mean, it had been ridden like a borrowed horse. But I was so desperate because I'd been searching for 3 months that I decided to go ahead and buy it. The problem started, so 3 months of searching. Finally, I was able to buy one. So this guy sells me the bike, but first we go to this import broker because it had license plates from the United States. So we go to the import broker, we say, here's our situation. This guy, the seller, was from Scotland, and he was selling me the bike, and he's out of here. So we need all the paperwork done before he goes. And we need a document written up giving me power of attorney over the motorcycle in case there's anything else that comes up. So yeah, no problem. So we did all that, got everything notarized, everything was squared away. This guy goes off to Scotland, nice guy, said if I had any problems to let him know, he would do what he could from there. So this company, the process is so difficult that you're not even allowed to try it by yourself. You must hire an import broker to do the paperwork for you. We were in Panama City, we found these guys that were recommended on a website, on a forum, and they were in this big, tall, shiny building in Panama City. It looked like, a nice office. They knew what they were doing. I come back to David. The motorcycle's here. I take it to the aduanas office, the customs warehouse, so it can stay there while all this paperwork is processed. I park it in the warehouse. They take the keys, and the customs company tells me, the import broker tells me, okay, in 8 days we'll have all your paperwork done and you can go and pick up the bike. 8 days, bam, painless. 3 months later, I finally had lost my mind, and they started avoiding my phone calls, and the customs warehouse, they were telling me if this bike stays here longer than 3 months, then you lose possession of the motorcycle. It's just ours because you took too long to do your work. So the import broker, they had started dodging my phone calls, they weren't returning my emails, and they're like 6-7 hours away. And so I called them, and I left the meanest, dirtiest, most foul-mouthed phone message on this guy's phone saying that I was going to drive down there. I would drive through the night and be there to meet you in the morning when you opened up the office, and just a really mean message. But I'd lost my mind. I mean, this is 3 months of me going to the customs warehouse a couple times a week saying, hey, where's my motorcycle? My motorcycle done yet? And sometimes I'd get there and I'd walk in and they'd say, well, oh, sorry, we're going to lunch. Nobody else would be there. Only customer in the place. Sorry, we're going to lunch right now. So you can come back in an hour or just wait here for an hour. I'd be like, all of you? All 30 people that work in this office, they go to lunch at the same time. Yeah, that's right. And so I would sometimes I like to see how deep the rabbit hole goes, like how stupid people really can be, or inconsiderate, and so I would stand there. I wouldn't go and sit down. I stood there at the counter and watched them all eating and laughing and joking, and just kind of like stared at them, and they made me wait for an hour before they came over and talked to me. It was really frustrating. So after I called and left this threatening message, the guy calls me back the next day. Oh, your paperwork's done. It's in the mail. Shows up the next day. I go down there. and I try to get the bike back. So they look at the paperwork, they're like, yeah, everything's good, here's the keys, here's the bike, but it won't start because it's been sitting for 3 months. So I tried to push it, but the parking lot was gravel, and the wheel wouldn't turn. So I called a friend, and while I was waiting for him to show up with some jumper cables, I was looking at the paperwork, and I noticed that my name wasn't on it anywhere. Everything was in the seller's name. So I went back in the customs warehouse, and I said, hey, when the police pull me over for having white skin, which one of these papers do I show them to prove that the motorcycle's mine? And they're like, oh, this one right here. And I go, that's not my name. And these people knew me. I was in there a couple times a week. It was like the guy that everybody rolled their eyes like, oh crap, it's this guy again. So they knew my name, but they're just so dumb. They're like, yeah, take the bike. We don't know who you are. So they're like, oh, well, you're gonna have to get that changed. Take the keys back, put the motorcycle back inside. So I left empty-handed again. So I call this guy in Panama City, and I'm freaking out again, and he keeps telling me, no, everything's okay, everything's fine. Panamanians, they really don't like confrontation, so they'll just tell you, I think, whatever it takes to get you to just calm down. But I will not calm down. So he tells me that, oh, well, we have an office in David where you live. You can just go there. This woman, she knows all about your situation. She's going to fix everything for you. Don't worry. So I call her up, and she's not in David. She's on the border of Costa Rica, which is about an hour away from here. I drive. She says, yeah, come on up. We'll get it taken care of. We drive up there and tell her the story. She has never heard any of this before. And then she says, okay, come back tomorrow with your paperwork. I'm like, well, why? Wait, is that how it happened? She made us take 2 trips for some reason when we could have taken care of everything in one, and that was something that annoyed me. They weren't like this part of the same company. She was just a completely separate woman, and so she fixes it. She takes about first I had to pay this first company, I think, $750 to do the paperwork that came back to me with the wrong name. Now I've got to pay this new woman $150 to fix it and put it in my name. So that gets done. She calls me up. I go up there, pick up the papers, and they're like, okay, great, here's your motorcycle. I finally get the motorcycle after 3 months and some, 2 or 3 weeks. Get the motorcycle out of customs. And I'm starting to feel pretty happy, but there's still some more paperwork that I need to do to get it registered and get a license plate and all that stuff. That took some time. I met another guy who I had to pay another $150 to do that, or 200, I don't even know, it's been so long. I try to block all this out of my mind. And then, so we go to the police station because the police have to inspect the motorcycle to verify that it isn't stolen, to give you a license plate. So we go there, and he's looking at the bike, and he looks at this paper that did have the wrong name but now has the right name, and he looks at the VIN number. He goes, yep, that's good. And then he looks at the motor number, and these people had put the VIN number in both spots, but the VIN number and the motor number are different numbers. So the cop's like, well, come back when you got this fixed. So now I got to go back to this woman and pay her again to fix the number. And she was starting to feel bad for me. She didn't charge me very much because she knew that I was a man at the end of my rope. I think she just charged me 20 bucks the next time I went up there. And I said, hey, this time while you're doing this, why don't you give this a good once over and just make sure there's nothing else that's screwed up this time. We did that. I went back and got the bike, took it to the police station, got a plate. And really I was, before all this sort of came together, it ended up taking 7 months by the time I finally got the bike. So it took me 3 months to buy the bike, and then 7 months to get the bike on the road. It was very, very frustrating time. I just wanted to be out riding and exploring Panama and making videos, and I almost had to shoot myself. And the only answer I could ever get from anyone was, because this is Panama. Why is this taking so long? Hey, this is Panama, and that's really what it is. There are even laws in Panama that prohibit you from talking bad about a company. Like, if like this company, they basically robbed me of $750, and even if you're honest, you can't. If I went to some online forum and said nobody use this company ever again because they screwed me out of my money, they didn't do the job that I paid them to do, it doesn't matter, because if I said something that would damage that company and maybe make them go out of business, then all those people got to go on welfare, and the government doesn't want that. So they could throw me out of the country if I said, hey, this is the name of that company and nobody should ever use them again. It's just madness. It's just madness is all it is. There was one woman in the aduanas office that she spoke a little bit of English, so she was always the person that had to deal with me. And I was always getting on her nerves, and I was trying to be polite. You know, at first you go in and you're polite, but after you get tossed around for so long, you can't be nice anymore. So this woman, my wife came with me a few times, and there's this sort of stereotype. You see a gringo with a Panamanian woman. She's just some hoochie mama that's looking, I don't know. Usually when you see an older white guy with a younger, then you know. But I feel like we get those same looks sometimes too, which isn't the case at all. My wife's a doctor. She's more my sugar mama than I'm her sugar daddy. But this woman that was always kind of rude to me, after we got all this done, she shows up at the hospital and her kid is sick, and my wife's a pediatrician and randomly got assigned to take care of her. And this woman was like, hey, I think I recognize you from somewhere. How do I know you? And my wife said, oh, my husband had that motorcycle at the aduanas, and I would come in with him sometimes to try and help figure things out. And she was like, oh, crap. And I was like, baby, please tell me you went to lunch for an hour or something and made her watch you eat. But my wife's too nice, and she just took care of her, and just like she normally would have taken care of anybody else. But that was kind of a weird, ironic twist at the end of all this. Now I've got the bike, but I'm waiting for parts. Miss 808 said, you know, since you're sitting around waiting for parts, why don't you make a video about the story? Because I think I talked to her a little bit about the nightmare that I've gone through. And when it was, like, right after it happened, I thought, I'm going to tell this story. I'm going to do a vlog where I tell this story. And I started telling it, and I was so angry because it was still so fresh on my mind that I just couldn't do it. I couldn't even talk about it. Anyways, I'm glad all that's over. I learned my lesson. Never try to deal with anything Panamanian again. My wife's Panamanian, so I should be able to become a citizen, but I don't. I'm just on a tourist visa. I have to leave every 3 months. I go to Costa Rica and come back because I know that if I try to become a citizen, I'm going to hire a lawyer, and they're going to rob from me, and then I'm going to have to go to the immigration office, and they're going to treat me like an idiot, and I just learned my lesson. I'm not going to deal with any of that stuff ever. Too many horror stories, and so that's what I do. I just leave every 3 months because of that. Anyways, go check out Miss 808's channel, and that's my rant about Panama and the motorcycle. That's a half throttle true story.